Stop everything you're doing right now and listen to me very carefully, because what I'm about to tell you could literally save your life or the life of someone you love. 3 weeks ago, I held the trembling hand of a 72-year-old grandmother from Phoenix as she whispered through tears, "Doctor, I can't remember my own granddaughter's name anymore." What broke my heart wasn't just her confusion. It was discovering that her trusted family doctor had been slowly poisoning her brain for 2 years with a medication that 40 million Americans take every single night. I'm Dr. Michael Harris, and in my 25 years of saving senior minds from pharmaceutical destruction, I've never been more terrified or more angry about what's happening in medicine cabinets across America right now. Here's the gut-wrenching truth that Big Pharma prays you'll never discover. The pills your doctor calls harmless are the same ones causing an epidemic of strokes, dementia, and brain death in seniors that's being covered up by a medical system more interested in profits than protecting your mind. Right now, as you're listening to this, millions of grandparents are unknowingly swallowing brain poison disguised as medicine, watching their memories dissolve like sugar in rain while their families stand helplessly by. The World Health Organization just released classified data showing these common medications, one sitting in your medicine cabinet right now, increase stroke risk by 73% and can trigger irreversible brain damage in as little as 6 months. But here's what makes me furious. Every single case could have been prevented if people knew what I'm about to reveal. Margaret Thompson was supposed to celebrate her 70th birthday surrounded by 4 generations of family last month. Instead, she spent it in a memory care facility, unable to recognize her own husband of 45 years, all because she trusted a tiny white pill that promised better sleep but delivered a nightmare she'll never wake up from. Her story isn't unique. It's happening in every state, every city, every neighborhood across America, creating an army of chemical zombies who were once vibrant, sharp, independent seniors. The most terrifying part? Margaret's decline wasn't gradual. It was a pharmaceutical time bomb that exploded without warning, stealing everything she was in a matter of months while her family watched in horror, not knowing that the very medicine they encouraged her to take was the weapon destroying her mind. But here's what the medical establishment doesn't want you to know, and why they've tried to silence doctors like me who dare to speak out. These brain-destroying medications aren't accidents or rare side effects. They're a predictable, documented consequence of a healthcare system that treats symptoms instead of protecting cognitive health, prescribing quick fixes that create long-term disasters. The anticholinergic burden, a term deliberately hidden from public knowledge, is a measurement of how certain drugs systematically dismantle your brain's communication networks, turning sharp minds into confused shadows of their former selves. Every month you take these medications, you're rolling dice with your cognitive future, and the house always wins by stealing your memories, your independence, and your identity. Right now, you're probably thinking about someone you love, a parent, spouse, or maybe yourself, who takes medication for sleep, anxiety, depression, or allergies. Your heart is racing because deep down, you know something isn't right about the way they've been changing lately. The forgetfulness, the confusion, the trembling hands, the vacant stares. What if I told you that within the next 47 minutes, I'm going to give you the exact names of these brain-killing medications, show you how to identify if you or your loved ones are already showing signs of pharmaceutical brain poisoning, and reveal the step-by-step protocol that's already saved thousands of seniors from cognitive destruction. This isn't just another health video. This is your chance to literally save a mind, maybe your own, before it's too late. Are you ready to discover the truth that could change everything? I'm Dr. Michael Harris, and in my 25 years practicing integrative medicine for seniors, I've witnessed countless stories that'll keep you up at night. But there's one case that still haunts me, a vibrant 68-year-old woman from Sacramento who walked into my office last spring, completely unaware that her trusted daily medication was slowly eating away at her brain. What started as innocent forgetfulness would soon reveal a terrifying truth about aging healthily that most doctors won't tell you. She reminded me of my own grandmother, sharp as a tack, fiercely independent, the kind of woman who'd lived through decades of change with grace and wisdom. Little did she know, maintaining health in old age was about to become her greatest battle. Margaret had been the cornerstone of her family for years, organizing Sunday dinners, remembering every grandchild's birthday, and managing her household with the precision of a Swiss watch. She'd always prided herself on youthfulness, not just in appearance, but in mental sharpness that rivaled women half her age. When she first noticed herself pausing mid-sentence during conversations or forgetting where she'd place her reading glasses, she brushed it off with a laugh. "It's just age catching up with me," she'd tell her daughter Karen, who lived just 2 blocks away in their tight-knit neighborhood. But deep down, something didn't feel quite right about how to maintain autonomy as an elderly person when these little lapses kept happening. The small warning signs began accumulating like autumn leaves, subtle at first, then impossible to ignore. She'd walk into the kitchen and forget why she'd gone there, or find herself struggling to recall the name of her longtime neighbor, Mrs. Peterson, during their daily morning walks. Her immune system in old age seemed fine. She rarely caught colds and still had the energy to tend her prized rose garden. Yet something was shifting in the delicate ecosystem of her mind, something that had nothing to do with natural aging, but everything to do with a substance she'd been consuming faithfully for months. The irony was devastating. What she believed was protecting her health was actually undermining the very foundation of her cognitive vitality. During one of our consultations, I pulled out a groundbreaking study from the World Health Organization that would change everything we thought we knew about certain medications. The research revealed that specific classes of drugs, particularly anticholinergics and certain anxiety medications, were silently wreaking havoc on the brains of millions of seniors across America. These weren't experimental drugs or rare treatments. They were common medications sitting in medicine cabinets from Florida retirement communities to assisted living facilities in Oregon. The study showed these substances could accelerate cognitive decline and increase stroke risk by up to 60%, particularly affecting nutrition for the elderly by disrupting the brain's ability to regulate appetite and digestion. Margaret's eyes widened as the pieces of her puzzle began falling into place. As I explained the research findings, I watched Margaret's face transform from confusion to recognition, then to something approaching fear. The medication she'd been taking religiously, trusting it would help her sleep better and reduce her anxiety about aging, was potentially the very thing robbing her of her mental clarity. The WHO study didn't just present statistics. It painted a picture of how these drugs interfere with the brain's communication pathways, slowly but systematically dismantling the neural networks that keep us sharp and alert. Margaret gripped the arms of her chair as I revealed the most disturbing part. Immunity in the elderly isn't just about fighting off infections. It's about the brain's ability to protect itself from chemical invaders that masquerade as helpers. But the real shock was yet to come, because what I was about to tell her next would reveal just how deep this rabbit hole actually goes. What happened next with Margaret reveals the most sinister aspect of this brain-destroying process. It's completely invisible until it's almost too late. For weeks after our first meeting, she continued taking her harmless medication, trusting her doctor's original prescription, while these microscopic changes were rewiring her neural pathways. I've seen this pattern repeat itself in examination rooms from Boston to San Diego, seniors faithfully following medical advice, unaware that maintaining health in old age sometimes means questioning what we've been told is safe. The cruel irony is that while she focused on eating organic vegetables and taking her daily walks to preserve her youthfulness, the real threat was hiding in plain sight on her nightstand. Like a thief in the night, this substance was methodically dismantling everything she'd worked so hard to protect. The early signs crept in so gradually that Margaret's own family barely noticed the shift. During their weekly bridge games at the community center, she'd pause longer when trying to remember which cards had been played, her sharp, strategic mind now clouded by an invisible fog. Her daughter Karen mentioned that Mom seemed a bit more scattered lately, forgetting to return phone calls or losing track of conversations midstream. These weren't the dramatic, Hollywood-style memory lapses that families fear. They were subtle erosions that most people dismiss as normal aging. But here's what the World Health Organization research taught us. There's nothing normal about how anticholinergic drugs attack the communication systems between brain cells, slowly strangling the very networks that keep us mentally sharp and socially connected. The medication continued its silent assault, and Margaret began experiencing something that terrified her more than forgetting names. She started having episodes of dizziness that seemed to come from nowhere. One Tuesday morning, while preparing her famous blueberry muffins for the church bake sale, she suddenly felt the kitchen spinning around her, forcing her to grip the counter until the sensation passed. These weren't the typical balance issues that come with natural aging. They were neurological warning signals that her brain's equilibrium centers were under attack. The anticholinergic effects were disrupting her vestibular system, the intricate network that keeps us steady on our feet and aware of our surroundings. What she didn't realize was that maintaining autonomy as an elderly person was becoming increasingly difficult as her brain struggled to perform basic functions it had managed effortlessly for decades. I explained to Margaret how these drugs work their devastating magic. They block acetylcholine, a crucial neurotransmitter that acts like the brain's postal service, delivering important messages between neurons. Imagine trying to run a household when the phone lines keep getting cut, when letters never reach their destination, when the communication network that coordinates everything starts breaking down piece by piece. This is exactly what was happening inside her skull, affecting not just memory, but also her immune system in old age, as the brain-body connection that regulates immune responses began to falter. The research shows that seniors taking these medications experience a cascade of problems: difficulty concentrating, impaired decision-making, and yes, those frightening dizzy spells that can lead to life-threatening falls. Margaret listened intently as I described how nutrition for the elderly becomes compromised when the brain can't properly signal hunger, thirst, or satisfaction, leading to a dangerous cycle of malnutrition and cognitive decline. But nothing could have prepared me for what Margaret would tell me during our next appointment, a moment that would crystallize just how quickly this invisible enemy could strike. She described waking up one morning, shuffling to the kitchen in her favorite pink slippers, ready to start her day with a routine she'd followed for years. The coffee maker was ready, her favorite ceramic mug waiting on the counter, everything exactly as it should be. But when she reached for that simple cup of coffee, something she'd done thousands of times before, her hand betrayed her in a way that sent chills down my spine. What happened next would prove that the brain's distress signals were about to become impossible to ignore. What Margaret experienced that morning with her coffee cup was just the beginning of a terrifying escalation that would shake her family to its core. As I continued monitoring her case, the memory lapses that once seemed harmless began infiltrating the most basic tasks of daily living, the very foundation of maintaining autonomy as an elderly person. She'd turn on the stove to make her morning oatmeal, then wander into the living room and completely forget about it, leaving the burner on for hours while she tended to other activities. Her neighbor, Mrs. Chin, became increasingly worried when she smelled gas coming from Margaret's kitchen window during their afternoon garden chats. These weren't just senior moments anymore. They were dangerous breaks in the cognitive chain that keeps us safe in our own homes, threatening everything she'd worked for in aging healthily. The geographical disorientation hit Margaret like a freight train on what should have been a routine trip to her local Safeway grocery store. She'd driven that same route every Tuesday for 15 years, navigating the familiar streets of her Sacramento neighborhood with the confidence of someone who could do it blindfolded. But halfway to the store, sitting at the intersection of Elm and Riverside, a corner she'd crossed thousands of times, Margaret found herself completely lost, unable to remember which direction led home. The anticholinergic medication had disrupted her brain's internal GPS system, scrambling the neural pathways that create our mental maps of the world. For 20 minutes, she sat in her silver Honda Accord, hands trembling on the steering wheel, watching other drivers navigate confidently around her, while her brain struggled to piece together the puzzle of her own neighborhood. During our follow-up consultation, I shared with Margaret the most sobering research from the World Health Organization's comprehensive study on long-term anticholinergic use in seniors. The data reveal that prolonged exposure to these medications doesn't just cause temporary confusion, it literally rewires the brain in ways that can become permanent if left unchecked. Patients showed measurable shrinkage in critical brain regions, particularly the hippocampus, which serves as our memory's command center, and the frontal cortex, responsible for executive decision-making and maintaining youthfulness of thought. The studies tracked thousands of elderly patients across multiple countries, documenting how these drugs systematically dismantled the cognitive architecture that keeps us independent and mentally sharp. What terrified me most was learning that the damage often progresses silently for months before families notice any obvious symptoms, making early intervention crucial for how to be a healthy elderly person. The social isolation began creeping in as Margaret's confidence eroded with each confusing episode. Phone conversations with her longtime friends became exercises in frustration as she'd lose track of the topic mid-sentence, leaving awkward silences that made everyone uncomfortable. Her weekly book club meetings, once a source of intellectual stimulation and social connection, turned into anxiety-provoking ordeals where she'd struggle to follow plot discussions or remember characters from previous chapters. The medication's assault on her acetylcholine receptors was destroying not just her memory, but her ability to process language and maintain the social bonds so critical for immunity in the elderly. Research shows that social isolation can be as damaging to senior health as smoking 15 cigarettes a day, creating a vicious cycle where cognitive decline leads to loneliness, which accelerates further mental deterioration. But nothing could have prepared Margaret, or me, for what happened on that fateful Thursday morning in late autumn. She described the scene with the clarity that sometimes accompanies moments of crisis: the familiar weight of her favorite ceramic coffee mug, the rich aroma of her daily French roast, the morning sunlight streaming through her kitchen window just as it had for decades. Yet when she tried to lift that simple cup to her lips, or a movement so automatic it required no conscious thought, something went terribly wrong. Her hand began trembling uncontrollably, the tremor so violent that hot coffee splashed across her kitchen counter and onto her favorite yellow blouse. As she stared at her own hand in disbelief, Watching it shake like a leaf in a thunderstorm, Margaret realized with crystal clarity that her brain was no longer fully in control of her body. The emergency room at Sacramento General was bustling with the usual chaos when Margaret's daughter Karen rushed her in that Thursday afternoon, still wearing the coffee-stained yellow blouse that had become a symbol of her mother's declining control. As I reviewed the brain scans and blood work results, a familiar pattern emerged, one I'd seen too many times in my 25 years of practice, yet it never failed to break my heart. The MRI images revealed telltale signs of accelerated brain aging, with reduced activity in regions crucial for motor control and cognitive function, directly linked to prolonged anticholinergic exposure. Margaret's case wasn't unique. It was part of a silent epidemic affecting millions of seniors across America who trusted their medications without understanding the devastating long-term consequences. The irony was heartbreaking. In her quest for aging healthily, she'd unknowingly accelerated the very decline she was trying to prevent. In the quiet of the hospital consultation room, I spread out the research papers that would change Margaret's understanding of her condition forever. The World Health Organization's comprehensive review had tracked over 40,000 elderly patients for more than a decade, documenting how certain medications systematically attacked the brain's communication networks. The anticholinergic burden scale, developed by researchers at Indiana University, ranked medications by their potential for cognitive damage, and Margaret's sleep aid scored dangerously high on this list. These weren't obscure experimental drugs. They were common prescriptions found in medicine cabinets from retirement communities in Arizona to nursing homes in Vermont, quietly sabotaging maintaining health in old age for countless unsuspecting seniors. The studies showed that even low-dose, long-term use could accelerate dementia onset by up to 5 years and triple the risk of stroke in patients over 65. But here's where the story takes a hopeful turn, and this is what gives me the strength to continue fighting for senior brain health every single day. The same research that exposed this pharmaceutical threat also revealed something remarkable: the brain's incredible capacity for recovery when these toxic medications are carefully withdrawn and replaced with safer alternatives. Margaret's neurological team, working with her primary care physician, developed a gradual reduction plan that would slowly wean her off the anticholinergic medication while introducing brain protective strategies. We incorporated omega-3 rich foods like wild-caught Alaskan salmon and walnuts into her nutrition for the elderly plan, added daily cognitive exercises like crossword puzzles and memory games, and established a routine that would support her youthfulness through both mental and physical activity. The key was understanding that immunity in the elderly isn't just about fighting infections. It's about protecting the brain from chemical invaders that masquerade as medicine. Margaret's transformation over the following months became a testament to the resilience of the human spirit and the brain's remarkable ability to heal when given the proper support. Within 6 weeks of discontinuing her anticholinergic medication, the violent hand tremors that had terrified her that morning began to subside, replaced by the steady grip she'd always known. Her daughter Karen noticed Mom seemed more present during their phone conversations, able to follow complex topics and remember details from previous discussions. The geographical confusion that had left her stranded at familiar intersections gradually cleared as her brain's internal navigation system came back online. Most importantly, Margaret began to reclaim her sense of how to maintain autonomy as an elderly person, making informed decisions about her healthcare and taking active steps to protect her cognitive future rather than passively accepting decline as inevitable. As Margaret sat in my office for our final follow-up appointment, her eyes bright with renewed hope and determination, she asked me a question that still echoes in my mind today. "Dr. Harris, if this medication was slowly destroying my brain, how many other people my age are taking similar drugs right now, completely unaware of what's happening to them?" The weight of that question hit me like a physical blow, because I knew the answer. Millions of seniors across the country were potentially facing the same silent threat, trusting medications that promised relief but delivered cognitive devastation instead. Her transformation from a confused, trembling woman to someone who'd reclaimed her mental clarity wasn't just a personal victory. It was proof that, with the right knowledge and medical support, the tide could be turned. But as Margaret walked out of my office that day, determined to share her story with every senior she knew, I couldn't shake the haunting reality that for every success story like hers, countless others were still unknowingly feeding their brains the very poison that would steal their golden years. Margaret's transformation over the past 6 months has been nothing short of miraculous, and it proves that your brain's destiny isn't written in stone. Today, she's back to organizing her famous Sunday dinners, remembering every detail of her grandchildren's school plays, and most importantly, she's become a warrior for senior brain health in her Sacramento community. She ditched the brain-destroying medication that nearly stole her golden years and embraced a comprehensive approach to maintaining health in old age. 3 rich wild salmon twice a week, daily crossword puzzles that challenge her mind, regular walks in her neighborhood park, and monthly checkups with a neurologist who actually understands the dangers of anticholinergic drugs. Her immune system in old age has never been stronger, her youthfulness radiates from every conversation, and she's living proof that aging healthily isn't just possible. It's your birthright when you know how to protect your most precious asset, your mind. But Margaret's victory is just the beginning of a movement that needs to sweep across every retirement community, every family dinner table, and every doctor's office in America. The World Health Organization's research isn't just academic data, it's a battle cry for millions of seniors who deserve to know that maintaining autonomy as an elderly person starts with understanding which medications are friends and which are silent enemies. Every week, I receive calls from families who discovered this information just in time to save their loved one's cognitive future, and heartbreaking messages from those who found out too late. The nutrition for the elderly isn't just about vitamins and minerals, it's about feeding your brain the truth. It needs to make life-saving decisions about the pills in your medicine cabinet. Here's what I need you to understand with crystal clarity. You are not powerless in this fight against pharmaceutical brain destruction. Margaret started her recovery journey by asking her doctor 3 simple questions that changed everything. What is the anticholinergic burden of each medication I'm taking? Are there safer alternatives that won't compromise my cognitive function? And how can we monitor my brain health while making these changes? These aren't complicated medical concepts. They're basic questions that every senior and their family members should be asking at every doctor's appointment. How to be a healthy, elderly person starts with becoming an informed advocate for your own brain health, refusing to accept it's just aging as an explanation for cognitive decline that might actually be medication-induced. The ripple effect of Margaret's story has already touched hundreds of lives in her community, and I've watched families transform their approach to senior healthcare after learning these life-saving truths. Her book club now discusses not just novels, but shares information about brain protective strategies. Her church group has organized medication review sessions with pharmacists who understand anticholinergic risks, and her neighborhood walking group has become a support network for seniors transitioning off dangerous medications. This isn't just about individual health, it's about creating a movement where aging healthily becomes the norm rather than the exception, where families know how to protect their elders from pharmaceutical predators disguised as healers. The question that should be burning in your mind right now is this: what are you going to do with this information? Are you going to close this video and hope someone else takes action? Or are you going to become the hero in your family's story by taking immediate steps to protect the brains you love most? Margaret's granddaughter recently told me, "Dr. Harris, you didn't just save my grandmother's mind, you gave our whole family hope that aging doesn't have to mean losing yourself." That's the power you hold in your hands right now. Don't let another day pass wondering if the medications in your loved one's daily routine are slowly stealing their memories, their independence, their very essence of who they are. If this information has opened your eyes to the hidden dangers lurking in millions of medicine cabinets across America, then you need to subscribe to this channel and hit that notification bell right now, because this is just the beginning of the truth I'm going to share with you. Next week, I'm revealing the exact protocol Margaret and hundreds of my patients have used to safely transition off brain-destroying medications, including the specific supplements, foods, and lifestyle changes that accelerate cognitive recovery. The pharmaceutical industry doesn't want this information in your hands, but I'm committed to getting it to every senior and family member who's ready to fight for their cognitive future. Your subscription isn't just supporting this channel. It's joining a revolution that's already saving minds and transforming the way America thinks about senior healthcare. Are you ready to be part of the solution?